All right, global marketing and business analytics. So we try to apply the marketing management tools and techniques, try to adapt it to the international trade and business. Okay, the marketing mix, I mean, you have seen it a lot in maybe previous marketing management courses or consumer behavior or other marketing trainings. And the marketing mix, I think the modern marketing mix has more than 4 Ps that we have known in the past. So this is the first P, right? The product distribution strategy. I could call it place. Then communication is essentially the promotion, and of course the fourth P is pricing. And of course nowadays we have more studies and research findings that show more components and more factors that constitute the marketing mix. But again, the classical, the conventional marketing mix has the 4 Ps here: the product, place, promotion, and pricing. So should the marketing mix differ for each market? Right. So we are questioning that is the market has the market become so global that we actually don't need any adjustments or differentiation in every market? So this is again the highly debated question. According to Levitt here, he argues that the world markets are have converged into like commonality, thereby not requiring the like localization or adaptation or adjustment of the marketing mix, right, in every market. But again, the question is it really true? Might not be entirely true, because of course there are a lot of like local adjustments that we have to make. I mean, you see the facts. You see the I think several weeks ago we saw the choices, right, between local responsiveness and the cost reduction pressure, and also global integration. So we still have to make like decisions whether to to adapt locally, how high the local responsiveness should be, and how high the global integration and cost reduction pressure would be. So this again, highly debated question, highly debated discussion point that we don't really know the answer, but I think we have to see the context in each case, in each product, in each company as well. Okay, so what makes it a requirement to adapt or to differentiate for each market? You see some factors that we have discussed also throughout the semester, right? The culture, right? Cultural differences, economic differences, economic conditions, economic systems, trade barriers could be another factor, and the product and technical standards. So there are many factors. Of course, there are more than this, right? As it's by no means exhaustive, right? Because we still have like many other factors that could actually affect and determine the differentiation strategy of our marketing mix. So let's see the first one, about the market segmentation. So you see market segmentation. So we create segments. So we call it segmentation. So we identify a distinct consumer groups whose needs, wants, and buying behavior differs from others in many ways. So we can make like segmentation. We create segments based on geographic segmentation, demographic, then social cultural segmentation and also psychological segmentation. So it could be based on geography, demography, socio-cultural factors, and psychological factors. I think we saw it a lot in, again, the marketing management and consumer behavior. So let's see the main segmentation issues here. So we might have like differences among countries with respect to the structure of market segments. So in one country, is it the segments that could be identified might be different from those in other countries. Like for example, you are in maybe in a developed country, have, I think, segmentation based on, I don't know, the segmentation would be more likely based on maybe demographics, right? The different ethnicities and other demographic issues. But maybe in another country, the demographic or other segmentation factors are different. They are based on more based on maybe education or cities versus villages, or maybe ages and some other things. So it would be different between one country and another. However, the second point here is quite interesting because some segments also transcend national borders, especially the younger generation. For the younger generation, you see like the some of the segmentations actually, transcend across borders, because in the same region, you can imagine like in Western Europe, you have the German, the French, Italian, the nearby countries. They might, you might treat them as actually one big market there, one regional market, rather than differentiating them, especially the younger generation, based on based on country borders. So we might have this kind of like intermarket segment. So we have I don't know, the automobile industry, and if you want to create some segments that you could observe, you could imagine the types of cars based on the segments that you have. It's based on maybe generation, based on age, or based on the location, the cities, or the more remote areas, and so on. Okay, so segmentation has become more complicated than ever, right? Because of the globalization, also regionalization, and some other the combinations of countries, like borderless regions nowadays, that because of the regulation, the free trade area, the economic economic union, and single currency union, and so on. So if again, if segmentation is still different among the countries, then we might need that unique marketing mix. However, if the segmentation has become more and more unified in a certain region, then we might be able to use a global strategy, right? So again, it depends on, I think, the context, the individual context of a product or a company. Right. So how do product affect marketing strategy? To see the basically a product is a set of attributes, right? And we hope that if we are producing a certain product, a certain good or service, then we hope that it could, again, fulfill consumer needs. So we could imagine that if consumer needs have become more convergent or unified, then actually we could essentially do the like mass production, or you could call it mass customization, or in other words, you could standardize the product and also the marketing mix, right? And of course, because I think in real life, consumer needs still vary, right, in different places, different segments, because of this kind of factors. I think things that we have discussed a lot, like cultural differences, including the tradition, social structure, language, religion, education, and so on. They have cultural differences, meaning that we still have to do customization in the product itself, but also in the marketing mix, the way we market the product. Right? Of course, if you go to Middle Eastern countries, right, the promotional materials would be different from those in Western Europe or in Northern Europe, in North America, and so on. And if you do any distribution strategy in China, it would be different from that in Australia or in other parts of Asia, and so on. So we have differences, cultural differences, and also economic development level. Is developed country, developing or less developed, and so on. So it will affect how we market the product, and also how we offer, right, the product attributes, and also the technical standards, right, product and technical standards. All right, so the first one, again, the next one is the distribution strategy, right? The question about the place, the place strategy, the distribution strategy. So the method, the company opts to deliver the products to consumers, to customers. So how it is delivered depends on the firm's market entry strategy. And of course, if we produce locally, then we could sell directly to our consumers, to retailers, and also wholesalers. So we produce it there. If you bring your, again, production facility to China and you're selling in China, then of course you could sell directly to your consumers, or you could sell through retailers and also wholesalers. But if we produce somewhere else and we need to send the products to another country, then we could have another possibility of being an export agent or an import agent. So let's see quickly here. If we manufacture inside the country, so this is the easiest to imagine, right? We produce there, you produce your automobile products, for example, in China, then you could sell it directly, right, to your customers, or you can, of course, you can sell them to retailers and wholesalers. What about if you manufacture outside the country? Okay, you produce a certain type of car in South Korea, and you want to sell it in China, then of course we could still sell directly to your customers, to retailers, to wholesalers, but you could also establish this kind of like agency, like import agency in for example in China. So you import from your factories outside that country, and then you sell it from there. You sell it from the import agent that you have established. So it's quite easy to imagine. There are a lot of choices nowadays. You could combine these strategies as well. So how would it differ related to the retail channel length and exclusivity, and also the quality? So let's see each of them. Might be, again, distribution strategy, right? The place strategy. So retail concentration, the first factor that would affect the choice of your distribution system. So how concentrated is the retail situation in that country? Is it rather concentrated or fragmented? So for concentrated system, concentrated retail system where there are only a few retailers supply most of the market. See, this is essentially more common in developed countries. So few retailers, they are coordinating, accumulating the power of the supply. Right? They're accumulating the supply and they supply most of the market. On the other hand, we might have this kind of like fragmented retail system. There are many retailers, small, medium, some big ones as well. This is, according to, again, research shows that this is more common in developing countries, more fragmented at the retail system. So what about the channel length? We have short and long. Right? Short channel means it's short. You can imagine the short channel length means the distance between the producer and consumers is shorter. So this is found to be more common with the concentrated system, right? The concentrated is more common in developed countries. Long channel means the distance between producer and the customers is longer, and this is more common in the fragmented retail system, usually in developing countries. And the next question would be how exclusive the channel is. How exclusive the channel is. For example, in the Japanese system, it's found to be quite exclusive. Right? If you are an outsider and you try to enter the market, and this kind of like channel exclusivity is quite high, quite obvious in the Japanese system. So it's obviously more difficult, right? If you're an outsider and you try to get the exclusive rights of selling a particular brand or particular product there, because that's how it works. Like the exclusivity is high. I think this also applies in many, Asian countries, right? This kind of exclusivity. If you have certain brand or certain product, it has a major, like country manager for that particular product or brand. We have to do that, right? To lock in, the exclusive rights. And what about the channel quality? So is it good, or is it just maybe below good, or somewhere in the middle? Right? Is it excellent or very good or good, and so on? So channel quality also will affect the the distribution strategy. Right? If the channel quality is good, now certainly you don't you could do the shorter, right? Usually you could entrust the channel there to be relatively short because the quality is quite good. But if the quality is not as good as you expected, then maybe longer channel could be safer, because if something happens to one particular channel, you have another channel or other distribution channels that could repair the reputation if something happened to the other channel or the other distribution channel or system. So we come to the question, right? Which distribution strategy should a firm choose? Again, it depends on many factors, but mainly the cost and benefit analysis, right? Cost and benefit analysis of each alternative. Of course, if it comes to price, a shorter channel is more efficient, cheaper, and we say that a shorter channel is better, right? Because it's more efficient, and especially if the channel quality is good. So we are not really worried about this kind of reputational risk and so on. But if the retail sector is fragmented, fragmented, especially in developing countries. There are many retailers. Longer channel might be preferred because they could we could diversify away the risk and have a longer channel. We might need the longer channel because we have so many retailers playing in the industry. So we could diversify. If one of the channels doesn't work or suddenly doesn't support our company anymore, we still have a lot of alternatives to be the way out, to save the reputation and also save the quality of the marketing effort. But of course, there are many other factors that we have to sacrifice, like maybe the cost is higher, so cost management should be tighter in the fragmented and long channel system. And we might have to offer some exclusive channels in certain cases or situations or certain customers. Okay, the next factor is communication or promotion. Okay, promotion strategy, communication strategy. We have so many alternatives nowadays, and I think we could have like direct selling, the conventional promotional strategies like direct selling, sales promotion, direct marketing, advertising. And advertising, even nowadays, could be conducted in the in-person or physical advertising and online. So it has so many choices nowadays. What are the barriers to, again, promotion, especially in the international context, international trade? Cultural barriers, I think, should be quite. We need to pay attention to the cultural barriers carefully, because if we go to a certain country, we try to promote, we advertise online, on mass media or something. It could be it could convey like wrong messages, like has different meanings, different interpretations of meaning. That's also another problem. It could be offensive, in one particular country, but it is okay, it's fine in other countries. So I think we have to pay attention to the details. In essence, we couldn't just assume that because of the globalization, then any kind of message would be like accepted universally everywhere. I think that's quite misleading assumption, and have to be careful with that. So cross-cultural literacy, always use like local advisors, right, to give advice, suggestions as to whether the contents, the way we are conveying the messages have been accurate and also effective. Sometimes it's accurate but not effective because it's full of distraction and something. So I think you follow from the cultural differences that we discussed several weeks ago. There's a high context culture, low context culture, and the high context culture, people are reading signals, living in the sea of information every day, so they could catch the like silent languages faster than the peers in like low context culture. Right? So in a low context culture, like in North America, like in the United States, clarity should be provided at a higher level. The clarity about what you mean by certain scenes or certain pictures or something. But in a high context culture, they could catch the meaning faster because they are living in this kind of like high context culture, the sea of information, and those the signals reading, and silent languages and something like that. So again, cultural barriers. And also we have to admit that this kind of, to a certain extent, we can call it a bias, right? The source effects. So the source effect happens when the receiver of the message evaluates the message based on the status or image of the sender. So knowing about this fact, especially in a certain country, actually we should use like uh, um, a reputable influencer. That could be a person, could be what's that, the virtual influencer. Right? Many products nowadays they're using the virtual influencer, like the apparels, the top brand of like apparels, shoes, clothing, and something like that. So many have used like virtual influencers as well, but still the personal influencers still play a big part, right? It's a source effect. And also the emphasizing their foreign origins in certain countries, because again, in certain countries they prefer, right? They prioritize maybe domestic products. You know, the feeling of like consuming their own products or the domestic products. So we might want to do some communication strategy to show that the product is made in the host country. We have employed almost like 80% or 90% of our workers from the domestic employees and so on. So yeah, depending on the case, of course, in some countries this doesn't resonate at all. I mean, it doesn't really matter. For example, in bigger countries, I think the emphasis is not so high on the origin of the products or something, but more on the quality. But in certain countries, they might prefer and prioritize this kind of issues. So yeah, we should read the situation from one place to another. Country of origin, this might be a bias because the place of manufacturing could still influence like product evaluation. Right? Many products nowadays they just show like made by the manufacturer, made by the company or something without mentioning the place. But again, in many markets they might care about the place of manufacturing, especially for the top-notch products, like the global level products. The customers want to see the global integration rather than local responsiveness. But in another context, they would want to see the local responsiveness. So it's not something that we could generalize at once, like for everything. But when if you talk about the top-notch brand, like you can imagine the top brands like maybe Louis Vuitton or the Ferrari or some top brands. Of course, the place of manufacturing is expected to be the headquarters, like the one global place of manufacturing, rather than that product being made in another country. But in another context, they want to see maybe some local responsiveness, that the shoes are made in maybe in certain country, like Nike. If you're buyers from South Asia, yeah, you might want to see that maybe the shoes are made in maybe India or Pakistan or somewhere, and they will sell more. So again, it depends on the context and the type of products that the consumers are buying. What about the noise level here? Noise level. We are competing with other messages like the comparative advertising, attacking one another, right? trying to show the weaknesses of the competing products and so on. So yeah, in highly developed countries, this kind of noises are quite high, or higher than in developing countries, because I think in developed countries, especially, they have more freedom of speech. So you could do the comparative advertising at a higher extent, right? So you could advertise your particular product, but also you could compare it with the competing products, showing the weaknesses and some other information about your competitors that somehow could be quite ruthless and harsh. In developing countries, maybe in many parts of, I don't know, in maybe in Asia or Latin America, I think this kind of practice might be might be less, and the noise levels tend to be lower because again the other messages are not as noisy as it is in developed countries. So how do we communicate with customers? We have like push and pull strategies. Push means, you can imagine the word there, as the word suggests. But push means we push, is a pushing strategy from producer to intermediaries and finally to end users. Pull strategy is more like the flow of communication. It's more, I think, reciprocal, like from end users to intermediaries and to producers as well. Essentially, push strategy means we emphasize or we prioritize a personal selling technique. On the other hand, the pull strategy prioritizes mass media advertising. So let's see the some differences here. The choice between the two strategies here depends on the product type and consumer sophistication. But again, pull strategy is using the media a lot, like the mass media. It might work better for firms in consumer goods selling to a large market segment. So we have like bigger market segments. So a lot of segments that we have to serve. So this kind of pull strategy might be more effective by using the media, right? Because we are selling and consumer goods. Right? Consumer goods are relatively, we call it mass production or mass customization at least. I think we still have some customization, but it's mass customization. So we might use the pull strategy and it might work more effectively. But push strategy might be more appropriate for this kind of industrial products, for industries, like very specific products, certain materials. For example, the material engineering that produces very light materials for electronic devices, for vehicles and other things. So the push strategy, like personal selling or direct selling, might be more effective, because if we do the mass advertising to the mass media, it will be like a lot of waste, like a lot of residuals might come up from the process, because the target audiences that we aim to are very specific, right? So we are not advertising to many people everywhere, many segments, but actually we are aiming at like certain segments, because we are selling very specific products, like industrial products. What about the channel length? If the distribution channel is longer, then the pull strategy might be working well. Right? Pull strategy, again, using the media, like mass media. So longer distribution channel with the media, it will help a lot, right? Because again, the distance between the producer and the end users is relatively longer. I have the wholesalers, retailers, and end users. So this kind of media would enhance, would create the repercussion of messages, right? Would confirm the messages again and again in the ears and mind of the consumers. And also important factor here, media availability. If we have like access to advertising media, then a pull strategy would be working very well. But if the media is not easily available, for example, we are in a city or a country or a place that doesn't have influential media, or maybe the demographic segment that we we aim at is not following media that much anymore. Maybe younger generation, they don't watch TV too much. They don't read newspapers. They simply, watch YouTube, Instagram, and some, social media apps and something. So this kind of like pull strategy might not be as effective as it is in other places where the access to advertising media is broader and larger. So pull strategy might be good for that certain case where the media is not easily available. So what is the optimal mix? Okay, of course, in real life, everything could be combined. Right? It's not mutually exclusive decisions. It's not like if we are choosing the pull strategy when we could abandon the pull strategy altogether. Right? It doesn't work that way. In real life, we combine everything. We get the best of a strategy, and if another strategy could work as well, we can do the melting pot strategy. For example, here, industrial products or complex new products, it's better to use the pull strategy. If distribution channel is short and only a few media, right? Media, available, right? Access to media is quite limited. But pull strategy, where you really rely on the mass media, most likely this would be more effective for consumer good products when the distribution channel is longer and we have like enough access to media, and the segments that we target is paying attention a lot to the media. I think that's the high time that we use the pull strategy. But again, in reality, we could combine everything. We combine, for a certain product, we might use the push and maybe a little bit pull strategy as well. So it's not entirely mutually exclusive decision where you have to abandon the other one. It doesn't work that way. So next question is, should we use a standard or standardized advertising? So we can use this kind of standardized advertising if we need this kind of like savings, like cost savings, like one message, one advertising style or message for the whole world. Or if local creative talent is scarce, couldn't find the local advertisers that could frame the message, right, the advertising attractively or effectively. So we have no choice but to use the global, what's that, the global design of the advertising, right? The global form of advertising, and we might face with a situation where like one large effort to develop a campaign would be more successful than many small efforts. Right? You can imagine, like for example, we have a global brand. Right? You have a large effort to launch the advertising messages at once. This might resonate better, right, in the mind of your end customers, your end users, than making a lot of like local messages. They might get confused or might be dissatisfied with the local messages, right, in that context. So again, it depends on the product and the nature of the product, and also the technical standards, and also the sophistication of the end users. Right? Again, depends on many factors. But we could make the decision. We can tailor the decision on a case-by-case basis. And also, if the firm has a global brand name, right, you can imagine this kind of product, as shown it on the screen, right, the MacBook or the iPhone or something like that, a global brand. Also the luxury brand, the maybe automobile products as well, especially the high-end products. Right? They want to enforce and emphasize the global brand name rather than local responsiveness or local adjustments. But it would be unreasonable if this kind of factors play a big part, like cultural differences are apparent. So of course it's quite risky to play the standardized advertising if we know that cultural differences are so apparent, right? And so influential in certain countries or in a certain region. Again, if you see the regions in the world, although the world is seeing a larger extent of globalization, but still, right, in certain regions, the differences are again very apparent. So we have to make a lot of adjustments, even in advertising, in sending them, conveying the messages, in Middle East, South Asia, Latin America, North America, and so on. So there are differences. There are differences that we have to take into account. Regulations, another factor. Regulations might limit the standardized advertising. So some of the pictures or videos or messages might not be appropriate in a certain country. Right? For example, you're selling a car using a lot of alcohol or something, alcohol and tobacco or something on the video and the pictures. This might not be acceptable in a certain country where alcohol is prohibited. Right? So it's quite obvious. And also other things like maybe the sports book, right? Sports book, or in certain countries it might be considered gambling as not acceptable. So you have to convey a different message, right? This is, I don't know, a simulation game or something. Yeah, even in certain countries, some financial market products are even considered gambling. See how complicated the world is. So again, in certain countries, definitely regulation play an important part that we might not be able to use the standardized advertising. Then the some firms standardize parts of campaign to capture the benefits of global standardization, but have to customize others. So it's like a melting pot here. This is, I think, the most realistic strategy. We customize many of the messages and advertising effort, but also we have to standardize on some of them, but have to customize the rest. Right? Okay, so the next component, pricing. Pricing. So pricing strategy, we could do the price discrimination and have to decide on strategic pricing and pay attention to the regulations that affect pricing decisions. Let's go straight to the first one, like price discrimination, meaning that we discriminate the pricing in one market from another market. The key factor here is the elasticity of demand. Right? Is it elastic? Is the demand elastic? Elastic means the change in price as a result of the change in demand as a result of the change in price. So if we change the price, how large will the demand change? Right? So if this is elastic, it means that even a small change in the product price will actually shift the demand quite aggressively. So we have to be quite careful with the elastic demand situation. So if we increase the price a bit, demand might decline significantly. On the other hand, we might see another product with inelastic demand. So I think this is more favorable to the producer, because even if we increase the price, the demand will not decrease so much. So it's inelastic. So if we have like inelastic demand situation, actually we are more, I think, flexible in in like increasing or decreasing our product prices, right? Because again, the demand will not react to the shock in an abrupt or significant fashion. If you increase the price, demand might slow down a bit, but it would not plunge. And on the other hand, of course, if you lower the price, we couldn't expect the demand to skyrocket, right, in elastic demand situation. But again, we have more flexibility in this one, right? In elastic demand circumstances. And we see here the price elasticity is greater, maybe in lower income level country and a greater number of competitors. So essentially, research shows that then the price elasticity is greater in maybe developing countries or lower income countries, and in places where there's a greater number of competitors. I see in developing countries where the income is still not as high as it is in developed countries. This kind of demand is more elastic. Right? If there's even a small change in price, that would affect the purchase decision by customers, because they will shift to maybe another competing product, or they might stop consuming that product altogether for a temporary period or something. See the picture here, the red line denotes the less elastic. See, even like increasing price will not create a big shock to the demanded product, right? Demanded output. On the other hand, the elastic means even a small change in price will shock the demand, or will shift the demand quite significantly. So the second point in the pricing strategic pricing, we have some strategies here. For example, predatory pricing. So very bad name here, predatory. So we make like price differentials from one place to another. So in one place where we have like a highly competitive market, we might want to lower the price. So we might want to sacrifice a bit right now, but in another place where we have the oligopolistic power or even monopolistic power, then we try to gain profit as much as possible, to garner profit as much as possible in that market. But we use the profit there to compensate for the loss of the losses that we suffer in other markets where we do the predatory pricing. So we intentionally, do the aggressive pricing, maybe just sell it at cost or even lower than cost and something. So what's the main purpose of the predatory pricing? We want to survive, of course. We try to drive the competitors out as well. Right? We want to survive there, to gain market share, kick out competitors if possible, like especially the weaker ones. And according to the plan, right, after competitors have gone, or competitors are gone, then we could gradually raise prices, product prices, and consequently gain more profits afterward. Another strategy, the multi-point pricing. Multi-point pricing, again, I think this is quite similar. We have to be quite alert about this one, right? Because our pricing strategy in one market might invite this kind of the retaliation. It's like tit for tat, right? If you do the predatory pricing or a certain pricing strategy in one place, your competitors, remember, your competitors also exist in other markets, so they might do some strategies as well, right? In other markets, so it may have impact on your competitors' pricing strategy in another market. So it's like, then multi-point pricing, we have to pay attention also. We have a certain strategic pricing in this location, your competitors might do different strategies as well in other markets where both you and your competitors are prevalent there. And another strategy here, the bleeding strategy, you can call it bleeding strategy, so experience curve. So you're expecting that throughout the process, over time, the prices could improve, but you're willing to sacrifice in the first, I don't know, maybe 5 years, 3 to 5 years or something. What is the main purpose here? You set the price as low as possible, maybe even below the cost. Again, what is your main purpose here? It purports to build the sales volume. So you want to get to the later stage of experience curve. So you're willing to sacrifice for the first 3 to 5 years or something, maybe for the first 10 years. So you can call it a bleeding strategy here. You're willing to bleed for maybe a decade, increasing the market share, increasing the sales volume in an expectation that by producing more and selling more, actually your cost structure would be leaner. The cost would be more and more efficient. It would be more profitable, and again, your expectation would be after 5 or 10 years, you will gain more market share. Then afterwards, you could increase your product prices gradually. I think this has been used a lot by, I don't know, the newcomers, especially newcomers. If you observe the mobile phone industries or the like computing industries, laptops, tablets, and something like that. So you could see that the like 10 years ago, newcomers like many Chinese brands began coming to the market about a decade ago, and they sold their products at relatively low prices with acceptable quality, and they have gained market share, right, over the decade. So now you see the prices have gradually gone up, and quality has been higher as well, because they have learned from this kind of like experience curve and something like that. Also in automobile industry, see newcomers, the cars made in India or China or something. So they try to increase the production, sales volume, as well as the going through the experience curve to lower the cost and something like that. So they're willing to sacrifice. So it's bleeding strategy or experience curve pricing. And next issue is the regulation. How do regulations affect pricing? So there are many regulations that you could imagine. The anti-dumping regulation. So dumping means you're selling cheaper. You're selling the product cheaper in a host country than at home. So you might want to affect the competition in a host country by intentionally selling your products at a price even lower than the cost, or at least lower than the selling price in your home country. So we call it dumping strategy. And of course, in many countries, this will invite like retaliatory actions. Okay, they will do the same thing. If you are having the dumping strategy, like I think many Japanese products did this strategy in the past, the dumping strategy, and you could imagine that once you do the dumping strategy, they will do the same thing to you. Right? They will come to your country. They'll sell their products at lower prices than those at their home countries, or even lower than their production costs. So it will be like a trade war happening again. So there are many countries that have enacted this anti-dumping kind of regulations, and also the competition policy, the anti-monopoly, antitrust law, and something. They might do some the floor pricing or ceiling pricing or something, right, to to discourage the like monopoly or something. I think in many countries, like they pass this kind of like floor prices, but also ceiling prices. So both, right? This is complicated. Not only do they have like ceiling prices, but they also regulate the floor prices. Again, depending on the context, I think the main idea here is to encourage competition and discourage the like monopolistic behavior or even oligopolistic behavior. So how should we configure the marketing mix? Standardization or local adaptation? You see some pros and cons here. Because standardization, we standardize everything. You know, we don't make many differentiation in the marketing mix. We could achieve the economies of scale easier, because all the effort is standardized for the whole world. We don't make many adjustments or adaptation, and faster. Single coherent global image. Like we could build the global integration, like global image, right? The same world-class product everywhere, and also easier to monitor in terms of the messages conveyed. What about the cons? The loss of advertising effectiveness because we don't adapt. Right? Lower adaptation or responsiveness makes the maybe leads to less effective advertising, because we don't really convey the messages appropriately in a certain country, and then little reaction and also little flexibility because we standardize everything, and it could create negative reaction from neglecting local needs. This is so true, especially like the one we just discussed, the cultural barriers, cultural differences, and also regulations. Some belief, right? Something like that. We don't pay attention to those details. We might offend the host country, the host citizens, and they decide not to buy our products, not because of lower quality, but because of bad messaging, bad messages that we convey. And then the adaptation here, I think the opposite situations, adaptation. See the pros, we respect the local specs and expectations. Local image would be substantiated, excellent local image, and customers could keep their landmark, and they feel they feel like attended, noticed, right, embraced, right, in the marketing effort. But the cons, higher costs, we have to make a lot of adjustments, a lot of variations of effort, time consuming, and then execution might be more complicated, because we have to coordinate a lot of efforts everywhere, and of course difficult to know whether what consumers really want. So we have to make market research everywhere, right? Every place, every country that we do business with. So I think the last topic of today is the innovation, product innovation. I think it's quite clear, self-explanatory, right? Product innovation is, of course, a strategic priority. No doubt, I mean, this is, I think, the key to winning the competition now and in the future. So again, competition today is as much about technological innovation as anything else. The technological innovation, the use of technology for our production and also marketing effort, even in funding, also financing and other financial decisions. And again, innovations would make existing products obsolete faster. But again, on the other hand, or at the same time, it opens the door to many new opportunities. So again, the keyword here is the links, right? The unified effort, the synchronization, and also the multidisciplinary effort, right? The R&D, right? Research and development, marketing, production, and even I think other factors like finance, other managerial functions like finance, and also human capital. I think they should be coordinated, right? in a unified, you know, effort and also style. So couldn't apply the traditional silos in managerial functions that we saw in the past. So where should the R&D be located? Again, we talked about this, I think, in the global supply chain management. I think in the previous module. So product ideas could come from anywhere, but usually the interaction between, again, the scientific research, we have the internal research division, we have the researchers conducting, you know, studies all the time, the the product research, market research, also financial decision making, and so on. And also with the interaction between or among the scientific research, demand, and competitive circumstances. So new product development is greater in countries where, again, more R&D, research and development, both basic and applied research. Basic research means publications in academic journals by universities or research institutes. Applied research is conducted by corporations. For example, you have internal research division for again doing the product innovation, right? New technologies, new formula, new materials, and also market research, right? To research the market all the time, funding and all other things. If demand is strong, then we have to come up all the time with innovative products, new innovations, faster, right, from one period to another. And if consumers are affluent, they would demand like higher quality products all the time. So have world-class products. They want more. They want like new upgrades, maybe every quarter or every semester or every year, because consumers are affluent. They have the purchasing power. They demand like better quality innovations and products. And if the competition is intense, right, rivalry is intense. Again, how could we integrate all the efforts there? R&D, marketing, production, finance, human capital, and it's a fact that product development has high failure rate. So this kind of, again, more like coordinated effort should be applied in a corporation. So how to enhance the value of the firm? Because if you, again, in doing business, what is the goal of a corporation? It's essentially to increase the value of the firm. So how to increase the value of the firm? Then we have to pay attention to all the stakeholders, right? Because so at the end of the day, we want to maximize the shareholder value. Shareholder wealth maximization is the purpose. So essentially, enhancing the value of the firm is the same as maximizing the shareholder value, shareholder wealth. But to get there, right, to enhance the value of the firm, to increase the value of the firm, we have to pay attention to all managerial functions and all stakeholders. For example, here we have R&D. Definitely, we need a strong R&D, strong research and development team in the like planning and then design, implementation, and so on. Top researchers, good quality research, good like research funding, and so on. So we need good R&D, because good R&D would produce like high quality products. See, so we need high quality products, but we also need to convey the messages properly. I see the marketing effort as well. So strong R&D would produce like world-class products, but again, the top quality products have to be have to be supported, corroborated by good marketing effort, right? The great marketing effort to convey the messages, to advertise properly in an effective and efficient way, right? What's that? The accurate target market, the positioning strategy, and so on. But what about the other functions? Finance, of course. We want to make sure that this makes sense, like financially. This is profitable. So once again, we are not prioritizing like profit and finance alone by neglecting the others. That's not true. But we have to remember that all of the effort made here at the end of the day have to be profitable, because otherwise, if it's not profitable, then we don't survive, right? It's not sustainable. And also human capital, again, we emphasize this over and over again, right? Human capital is super important because, again, the talents there, the talents that we have, the human capital that we have, they are the keys, because they're the brains, right? The thoughts, the effort, essentially come from human capital, right? They conduct research. If you have like great talents, they could conduct research, great in production, good people in marketing, and so on. So all the factors here have to be incorporated, have to be taken into account. So we couldn't neglect like one function, or we prioritize a certain function at the expense of the others. That doesn't work, right? To increase the value of the firm. So cross-functional teams. Yeah, we're talking about cross-functional, multidisciplinary teams. This has become a common practice, norm in the industry. Effective cross-cultural teams, you see some tips here. Make sure that it's led by heavyweight project manager with like high status, high influence, high influence, especially, to lead, especially to lead in the a crisis situation. It should include members from all critical functional areas or managerial functions. Have members located together, so it should work together. I think this kind of like in-person conversation together will work better than if members are scattered everywhere. Even if we have like good online software or something, still it works better if we have that in-person work together. Establish clear goals and develop effective conflict resolution processes, or an effective conflict resolution process. So especially if conflict appears, how the leader and also the team members could solve the conflict in a most productive way. Okay, and how can firms build global R&D capabilities? So we need to integrate everything, right? Integrate all the managerial functions, the R&D, marketing, production, finance, human capital. So we couldn't work with the silo mentality like we had in the past. Things have to be integrated and well collaborated nowadays. We may need to develop like different versions of the R&D facilities in many countries. For example, you have maybe quite like major differences maybe in North America, Asia, Europe, or Africa, and some other continents like Australia and so on. So we might need like different R&D centers to cater to different markets, because again, we integrate the R&D and marketing and other functions. And because of the differences still exist, right, in many regions in the world, we might have to do the catering strategy. We have to cater to every region differently, even in a integrated or in a unified fashion. All right, I think that's all about the international marketing strategy. So again, the global marketing that we just discussed today is about the, again, marketing effort. If we are having the international operations, and I think the if we could wrap up, all the discussion points today is about the integration of all the effort, right? The marketing mix, and also the R&D, marketing, production, finance, and even human capital. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.